West Ham fans, it looks like Kalvin Phillips has agreed to join your club. talkSPORT understands talks between the Hammers and Manchester City over the terms of a loan move are at an advanced stage. Both clubs very, very hopeful of thrashing out a deal. The Hammers' interest in England midfielder Phillips has been driven by manager Davy Moyes. So we're getting the latest on that from our chief football correspondent Alex Crook. Crookie, how are you this morning?
Yeah, good morning, all good, you okay?
We're in top form, mate. This Andy and I were talking about it early on, Crookie. It just seems an absolute no-brainer for everybody involved.
Yeah, I think it could be one of those rare transfers where, as you say, it suits all parties. Kalvin Phillips needs to go out and play some football before the European Championships. Not that I think his place in Gareth Southgate's squad is under serious threat, because obviously a lot of people have said, well, he's not playing for Manchester City, therefore he shouldn't be playing for his country. But there aren't too many similar English midfielders, that do the same job as Kalvin Phillips. So I think he'll be on the plane, but he wants to go and be in the best possible shape to hopefully, from his point of view, push for a role in the starting 11. Obviously, Pep Guardiola came out quite publicly and was almost apologetic about the lack of game time that Phillips has been afforded at Manchester City. As you mentioned there, my understanding is that Phillips has given the nod that he's happy to join West Ham. I think more discussions would take place today between the two clubs and haggle over a loan fee. We know that City were asking for as much as £7 million at one stage. I think West Ham are trying to get that reduced, and they're also discussing what percentage of his wages West Ham will pay. I was told yesterday he earns more than 150 grand a week at Manchester City, and obviously it's not uncommon in loan deals where the loaning club pick up a fair percentage of that. So that's what they're ironing out. And I'm also interested to see, when this does go through, if there will be any kind of option or obligation to buy, because certainly when Newcastle were interested earlier in the window, that was one of Manchester City's provisos.
Yeah, it's a good point, that, Crookie. The obligation to buy, I think, is an interesting clause now that often gets put in these situations, because a lot of clubs, and West Ham, I'm sure, realise that potentially they could be getting a really, really good player on their books here. But you're right, it's going to take him a while to get up to speed. I'm just wondering who's going to maybe miss out. I see it was Souček and kind of Ward-Prowse that played up at Sheffield United, because David Moyes had the two quicker players in the wide area. But be interesting to see exactly which way they set up now with Kalvin Phillips.
Yeah, I wonder if it'll free James Ward-Prowse up to play a little bit further forward. I was listening to West Ham fans calling into the Sunday session after that draw at Sheffield United, and they were suggesting that maybe Ward-Prowse as a two holding in midfield isn't necessarily at his best. They think he's better as part of a midfield three where he can get forward. Obviously, he's got good numbers this season in terms of goals and assists. And actually, Thomas Souček, who dropped off a little bit form-wise last season compared to where he has been previously, I think he's somewhere back to his best. And obviously you've got Edson Alvarez, who's been an excellent signing. So it just gives West Ham that little bit of squad depth. They're still competing in Europe, of course. They're in the last 16 of the Europa League, and they're in a really good position to challenge for a European place via the Premier League again. So I think this is quite an astute signing. As Ali said, my understanding is that David Moyes has really led from the front on this one. We know that he likes to sign players who are proven in the Premier League, and Phillips is certainly that.
Cricket with Lee Ryder on earlier from the Newcastle Chronicle discussing what's happening at Newcastle. Have you got any update on anything up there?
I think this is going to be really interesting to see what happens at St James's Park in the final days of the transfer window. The chief executive, Darren Eales, came out a week or so ago and backed up something I write in my transfer notebook, suggesting that Newcastle may well be susceptible to offers for their players because of their financial position, because they want to stay on the right side of the Premier League's profit and sustainability rules. And I think we're seeing that in this window. Bayern Munich still pushing for Kieran Trippier. It wouldn't surprise me if he left between now and the 1st of February. There's been interest from overseas clubs in Callum Wilson. And of course, Miggy Almiron as well, with that big money bid from Saudi Arabia. I'm not sure how keen Almiron is to join Al Shabab in this transfer window, but I think it's likely we will see one high-profile departure from Newcastle. And I feel a little bit sorry for them, because I think what we're seeing here is the fact that maybe they've grown too quickly on the pitch at the moment in the bank balance and in the accounts, that they can't quite keep up. And it's a difficult position for Eddie Howe and for the owners, because I'm sure they'd love to go out this window and strengthen the squad and give themselves the best possible chance of getting back into Europe next season. But finances just don't allow it.
No, but they're doing it the right way. Rather than run the risk of falling foul of FFP, they've got to do that the right way. I don't care, and they'll get the benefits further down the road. What's an interesting one here, Crookie? Levi Colwill is attracting interest. Obviously, Chelsea player attracts interest from Liverpool. Is anything in this?
Well, he was certainly on Liverpool's list in the summer, and again, I wrote this in my notebook last week that interest hasn't gone away. Chelsea are not dissimilar to Newcastle in that, in order to keep spending the type of money they have, they're going to need to sell somebody. Armando Broja is attracting attention of several clubs, and I think if they got an offer of £35 million, he would go. The Conor Gallagher situation is perplexing because he's Mauricio Pochettino's captain. But again, it's pretty clear that if an offer of £45 to £50 million comes in for him, then Chelsea will accept it. And Levi Colwill is another academy player that if they were to sell him, that would go down as 100% profit on the balance sheet.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he's top of the list of players that they want to move on, but Liverpool have been alerted to that, and I'm sure other clubs have been as well.
talkSPORT Breakfast, waking you up Monday to Friday morning from 6 a.m. on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.